Hello and welcome to the Middle School Math Summit. I'm your host, Kathy Martin, and I am so excited to bring you the one and only Bre Baildon. Bree, thank you so much for being part of our event. I'm so excited to chat and talk all things healthy meal planning for busy educators. For those who may not know you, can you share a little bit about yourself and life as an educator?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Bree. As you said, I am a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for about 7 years now. I'm originally from Minnesota, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm just staring at all these farms in front of me. But I currently live in South Korea because my husband is an international school teacher. So we've been
That's
over there for about 2 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's a fun lifestyle. But yeah, so, might switch up the dynamics a bit of the presenters here where I'm not an educator and I'm very transparent with that. But kind of how I got to this area where I focus primarily on educators is my background. When I first started as a dietitian, I was doing a lot of outpatient nutrition counseling, and like a lot of diabetes education, weight management. And then when we decided to move abroad, I was kind of lost and just like, okay, I know there's a lot of different opportunities for online work and stuff. And then I actually use it as a chance to work on complete my master's degree in health and wellness coaching. And I was kind of still working with some patients remotely. And then more like abroad, when I got connected more into the international teaching community, I really started to see this pattern. And even like as the spouse of a teacher as well, just like teachers, and I don't like to generalize, but in general, teachers have pretty poor eating habits, but because they have pretty unique challenges when it comes to healthy eating. And I found over and over again that these, both between the friends that I was talking to and just at home, as well as in my work, that like the people who really struggled the most were teachers, and very like kind of traditional and I don't know, basic normal advice or like healthy eating information was really not applicable, or really it didn't look the same when it came to educators. So I kind of, as working, I was able to create different tools and techniques. A lot came from like the health coaching background, to create something that was specific for educators who have such a high energy profession, as I'm sure you see every single day, especially middle school, where like my husband's also a middle school teacher, and just like, I give you guys so much credit because that is, I cannot imagine how draining that is. But right, it's a very high energy profession. And like what I hear over and over is like, Bree, like, I am so tired. I'm so tired. Like you come home at the end of the day and just crash. And, part of that is just the demands of the job. But, with being in that environment where it's so high stress and takes so much energy, as well as especially even more relevant the past 2 years is supporting an immune system where you're around like kids all day and they're so germy, where there's trying to think a nice way to put that, where a lot of those things can be improved with better lifestyle habits and nutrition. So then, kind of fast forward as I kind of worked through all that and created some things that worked, is then since about 2020, I then founded my business, All Nutritionist, which is really focused on nutrition and health coaching for educators, where it's very focused on, for people who are on the go, very practical solutions, focus on energy management and just getting really like healthier in general without diet, without a focus on weight loss.
You said a lot of things there.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot
really
to it.
spoke to me. And I think all of us who are watching like are just nodding our head like, yep, we are drained, we are exhausted, we want to eat healthier, but there's no time, we're tired, So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I just think we really, really need it. And I just a lot of times don't think we know how. So before I dive into like all of my questions, can you kind of share with us, because we are talking about meal planning, we are talking about healthy habits, healthy eating habits. And I really am glad that you talked about like not the weight loss piece, because I don't think that's everyone's goal. And if that is, But I think, you know, I like that you just don't focus on that, because that's not what it's all about. Right. So anyway, can you share just what is meal planning? Why should we do it? And how can it actually help us save time in the long run? I just kind of want to start there. And then I want to dive into kind of just more about like strategically, how can we do this? Just more you. Yeah. How does that feel?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. So meal planning is one of my absolute favorite things to talk about, because I also really think it's important to break the myth around it, where often, you know, when we think about meal planning, it can be very overwhelming and very daunting. Because, you know, life is so busy and we're so on the go. Or like just even the fact of like sitting down to plan, like when it comes to meal planning, it doesn't have to be this like detailed, sketched out, like, you know, pretty doodled menu for the week, right? Like, and that's like what I really like to teach my clients. Like meal planning is all it is just it's having a plan for what you're going to eat. It could be even for tomorrow, right? You can meal plan for tomorrow. You don't have to meal plan for a week if you don't want to. And the key to being successful with it is to doing it in a way that like works for you and you know, your family, your household, in a way that feels good and that is sustainable. I have people who they meal plan 2 days at a time. Other people, I had a client once and I don't know how she did it, I'll be honest, but she meal planned for a month at a time.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's so many different ways to do it. And why I love it is because I think you know, those things you see online, who knows how accurate they are, but I think I'd seen something a few months ago that spoke to me where it's like teachers make more decisions in an hour than like a surgeon does in a day or something, right? Like, I don't know if you saw that too, but
yeah.
Where like teachers, I think one thing where you're constantly like, you know, classroom management and lesson planning and teaching and admin and parents, like, you know, you're making all of these decisions where then you get home, the last thing you want to decide is, what am I going to eat? What am I going to cook? What do I need at the grocery store? It's just like, you know what? I just can't even, my, you know, like that decision making, that capacity is done. I'm going through the drive-through, right? So like, that's one of the biggest benefits to meal planning is then when it gets to that time, whether you're going to grab some for lunch, run to the grocery store for dinner, is you have a plan so you don't have to make the decision. So like beating that decision fatigue is probably the number one reason to do it. Then also a really important element that I think right now is helpful is it can really help you save a lot of money, right? When groceries are so expensive, by having a plan, you're not just, you know, even just from cooking at home rather than eating out right there. And by having a plan, you can stretch ingredients a lot farther. You're not throwing things away, you know, like buying that bag of spinach and then you throw out 4 days later because it's all mushy and gross, right? So there's a huge element as far as like budgeting, making grocery shopping a lot easier, because you know I love grocery shopping. That's not the norm though, where
I hate grocery shopping.
Yeah. So if you like have a list, you're in and out in 5 minutes, saving time that way. As well as, you know, it's also a really kind of important way to help reach your health goals. If there are certain health or fitness goals that you are working towards, by having a plan, then you're creating a plan, or, you know, with help, or, you know, whatever that system looks like, that you have a plan to reach those goals through the food that you're eating.
So, okay, I love what you're saying. It's so true. Like at the end of the day, I do not want to think about what I'm going to eat for dinner. You know, it's just, I just don't want to do it. I, you know, barely have enough energy to like get up and cook something, let alone decide what to eat, go get the things and then make it. So yes. And I actually really like the fact that you said you can pick and choose how many days you want to meal plan for. In my mind, it's like the pressure of having to plan for the whole week. Sometimes that's like, oh God, like, you know, I don't want to do it. It's just, yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, we're gonna get back to that. So,
and even the specific meals too. Like you don't have to plan for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like if you just want to plan for your lunches, that's still meal planning, right?
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any suggestions? Okay. So I just said, I hate meal planning for the week. Not, I hate meal planning for the week. Sometimes it just feels really exhausting. So do you have any tips on what we can do so that it doesn't take forever. It doesn't take up our whole weekend because, you know, like most of us are teachers, but we have kids, we have soccer games, we have life outside the classroom,
Yes.
you know? So I don't want to.
You shouldn't spend it in the kitchen.
Correct. Like I don't want to spend my whole Sunday cutting things, going to the grocery store, boxing things up. I mean, it's all, but any tips on how we can cut it down?
Yes.
You have to do some of that, right? Like,
right. So I have kind of 3 main strategies that I teach, like when it comes to meal planning, to absolutely do that, to save the time, to save that, just like, oh, I don't want to do this, to make it a little bit easier. One of my favorite ones takes a bit more work when you first do it. And it is kind of a work in progress, but is to use like a cycle menu, which you kind of might be familiar with when it comes to like the cafeteria, the school you work in, where it's like, you know, they have the same menu for the month, or like, you know, it repeats, where like, if you have like, okay, like these are like my 10 favorite meals. I know I love these, like these are great, like ingredients are easy to get. And just, you know, those are your recipes that you cycle through for maybe lunches and dinners, because then, you know, especially if you maybe are just planning dinners and like you have these 10 go-tos, like every other Monday is tacos, every other Tuesday is like a fish dish, or, you know, like you have your go-tos, like there's no shame in repetition. And it's just because that really takes that decision fatigue out, and it really saves time in the kitchen because you're not constantly learning how to cook something. Some people don't like it because it doesn't give them enough variety. Other people like stick to what they know, and they're totally content with that. So there's no shame in that. So that's one. Another one, which is kind of my favorite, or like our preferred one at home, is I just call it like a theme system for planning, where like each day of the week you have a theme for. So like maybe like Monday is always meatless Monday, where you just choose like a vegetarian or vegan meal. Tuesday is like tacos or some sort of Mexican dish. Wednesday is some sort of like stir fry. Thursday is some sort of pasta dish. Friday is like some sort of pizza or eating out. Saturday is like a fresh salad or something. And then Sunday is maybe like whatever is in the kitchen. You know, where you just, so then that when you sit down to plan, it's like, okay, like choose a favorite vegetarian, choose like a taco dish, you know, where then it's like, okay, it can take 2 minutes if you have that sort of structure that you like.
I like that actually, because
Yeah.
it narrows it down for you enough,
Exactly.
but you still have
like,
options.
oh, I don't know, it sounds good. Yeah. So that one works really well. And then another one is just kind of planning around like different sources of protein, because I think for a lot of people, that's the part that can get monotonous. It's like, oh, do I really want to eat chicken breast again? So again, you could use that same kind of theme structure, like, okay, like, you know, we rotate through like chicken, beef, pork, fish, and like meatless, right? If you're like primarily like a plant-based family, that can work really well too. So you're not like eating tofu every night. Like, okay, we're gonna do like cheese and like tofu and then legumes, you know, just of getting some variety in that way, depending on, again, like someone's level of comfort in the kitchen. But I think of having, and obviously you can, you know, depending on the seasons, the time of year, what your schedule's like, you can kind of, you know, kind of weave between the different strategies. But I find having like some sort of framework for planning can be super helpful.
I love that. Any suggestions for the beginner or maybe lazy cook? Like, I don't want to say lazy, but someone who just doesn't want to have to cook everything from scratch.
So I am a huge fan of, I don't know, delegating what you can, which basically what I mean by that is like, if you have access to a grocery store where they have produce that is already cut, things that are frozen, if it works for someone's budget, of even like a meal kit delivery service, where like you like those time consuming parts of like washing, chopping, all of that. If it's, you know, again, affordable and like accessible to you, to just buy it as is, or like if you have a Trader Joe's by you, or a place where they have a lot of these like meal kits and ingredients where you can just throw together like 3 things for a meal. I absolutely love that, as well as like more like, I think processed foods get such a bad rap, where like just because something's been created in a way to make it easier for us to cook doesn't, like this, you know, I have also things with like bad foods and good foods of that, where like it's food. If you're pulling out like the frozen chicken tenders and preparing it with a baked salad mix, there's no shame in that, of just like, okay, it's like, it's quick. It's like those convenience, those processed foods, which might sound shocking coming from a dietitian, but it's so true. Like there are so many things that can make spending time in the kitchen a lot quicker and a lot easier. And if it works for you.
Can you talk more about that? Like, because I'm
Mhm.
thinking, what are you talking about? Processed foods, we don't want that. Like, you know,
Mhm.
like, because society tells us that that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at the term processed foods, it just means like food that's been processed from its natural state, right? So, like, generally, I don't recommend more like ultra processed foods, like having a meal with like chips and things that are pretty unrecognizable from their original form, I guess. But like, like a staple meal at our house, for example, is we'll throw some frozen chicken tenders in the air fryer, pair it with a salad mix, and call it dinner, right? Throw some ranch and cheese on it, right? Crispy chicken salad. Or grabbing a frozen pizza and pairing it with some sort of maybe like frozen vegetables, right? These foods that are processed, but when it's paired and portioned in a way that feels good for you and works for you, that works too. But then some other ones like are more like pantry staples that are also like processed, like canned beans, canned tuna, frozen veggies. I already mentioned like frozen fruit, like these things that maybe aren't in like the perimeter of the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's no shame in things that have the bulk of the work done for you.
So, I mean, I love using frozen vegetables because oftentimes they're frozen, but there's nothing else in it except whatever it is.
Yes.
You can get a bag of like frozen peas, and like all it is just peas. Like, it's not,
Right.
there's all this stuff that you can't pronounce on it, or
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And one thing that I love telling people, especially when it comes to frozen and even canned produce, is that depending on the time of the year and where you're at, is sometimes they're actually more nutritious than the fresh, because when they are basically harvested, they're prepared and frozen or canned right away. So all of the nutrients are preserved versus something that's, grown countries away, picked, boxed up, transported
Shit.
maybe, a
Yeah.
week or two before it gets on your table, versus the frozen stuff, the nutrients they are pretty sensitive. So it's a generally a myth that the fresh are healthier.
Okay. So there are going to be times where we miss a week with meal planning, or we are just going to go to the fast food place. Any tips, or if we have kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, or any tips on what we can do if we're going to go to the fast food place just to help us get back on track?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the biggest tip I have for that is to like look at the big picture. If it's a week where things have been crazy, grades are due, maybe you're coaching, or like it's just like every night there's something going on. It's a week. It's not going to impact you at all. You might not feel so great, right, during that immediate
Yeah.
week, but once you get through it, like when we're like, oh, like I screwed up, I'm way off track, like a week's not going to do anything. But then the important part is not, like say something comes up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were really hard. That doesn't mean the whole week is a wash. Say, okay, it's Thursday. You know what? The past few days are hard, but like this is what I can do, of not always having that like all or nothing. We're like, okay, this was a bad week. I'll start again on Monday. Like that's one of my least favorite things I hear people say.
Yeah,
And
I'm
again,
already in it, so
it's all
I might as well just eat crap
right.
because I'm already here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like there's no reason you need to do that. But where I think the power comes from is just taking a second to just think about what happened that week, why was it so challenging, and what is realistic to do moving forward. Because I think some people kind of, they're like one extreme or the other, like, okay, I'm only eating fast food, well, I feel like crap after doing that, so now I am going to menu plan and meal prep for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to go to the grocery store, buy all this fresh veggies. But I think that's a bit extreme if you're going from fast food to trying to cook all these things. Are you really setting yourself up for success? Just to be realistic and figure out like what is actually going to make it a more successful week or a more successful day moving forward.
I love that. Just remembering that, like a couple bad days or a couple bad meals doesn't mean don't just like dive off the cliff. Like you can
Yes.
bring yourself back. So,
Mm-hmm.
where do you find your recipes? Like, do you have any go-to easy meals, easy snack ideas? especially for those of us who might not have access to like a microwave for lunch, just any go-tos that you have that we can easily just put together and do for lunch or a snack or a meal tomorrow.
Yes. So one of my favorite places is it's called MealLime. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but it's like MealIme. It's an app, a free app where you can like just set like what kind of dietary preferences you have, foods you don't like. And then there's like very easily categorized recipes where you can kind of just like click, I want to eat this, 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 and then it will actually create like a grocery list for you. And I love the format of the recipes. Yeah. There's a paid version. But I do find with the free version, and one just like, I love how the recipes are organized. So because often if you're pulling up, if I have my phone up in the kitchen and I'm following a recipe, I'm constantly scrolling up between like, okay, how much of this ingredient? Well, what am I doing next? Where the way they have it organized, it's like step by step with like how much you need. So it's very user friendly.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, so that's probably my biggest go-to. And I mean, honestly, once I find something I like, I just make sure to save it in Pinterest. And then when I am meal planning or need some variety, I'll just kind of scroll through because it's things that I've made before. I try to only like pin things that I know I like or that I've made before. Or if there's something I want to make, I'll keep it separate, just again to take all that decision fatigue, take away that overwhelm. Is doing that. And then when it comes to like go-to meals or snacks, I honestly eat very simple. Because again, I think nutrition and this stuff in healthy eating gets pretty overcomplicated, where there's no shame in recipes where it's like, some sort of protein, a starch, and some veggies. We do a lot of maybe like fish or chicken with some potatoes and some like roasted veggies. Like that's a pretty big staple, or like salads now that it's summer and it's hot out. I love just like simple kind of balanced meals, as well as snacks too, of like smoothies, like maybe some crackers or veggies with cheese or hummus and fruit and yogurt. Like kind of the fewer ingredients, the better, especially for people who are on the go and, we just want something grab and go that can be super game changing.
Yeah, I buy an extra carton of eggs and just like hard boil them all week long. And that's like,
yes,
I eat for breakfast. So I don't have to make anything during the week. It's just there.
Love it. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't ever think about meal planning lunch because it's always just leftover dinner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's really great strategy as well.
Yeah. So you're use the same, like these are my 10 to 15 meals and I just rotate through. Like, is that your preference?
Kind of seasonally, like, okay, like in the fall, it also depends on like Korea, kind of what's available fluctuates pretty significantly. So like, I know like based off like the fall produce and things like these are tends to eat, and like even just what sounds good, right? Like, and then in the winter, we do a lot of like soups and stews and like curries. I like those kind of go-to recipes. In the spring and fall kind of are similar. And then the summer, it's really just a lot of like salads and bowl type meals because they're just fresh and crunchy and yummy.
Awesome. So you don't do a lot of like calorie counting, like you don't believe in, like you are have a protein, have a vegetable, have a carb if you'd like.
Yeah. For people, like when we're not trying to manage any, diseases or any specific conditions, for most people there's a lot of benefits, and just not only from taking that stress and that pressure off of trying to have it perfect, to trying to hit these certain numbers where, kind of combined with just like learning how your body responds to different foods in different amounts. Where it's kind of more of like a mindful approach, it can really simplify things where like the numbers can be helpful to have that awareness, right? Of, some people, we do work on protein goals or calorie goals when that's necessary, but often we can achieve goals without having to get down to the annoying details.
I love that because I feel like it's like keto everything or low carb this. There's just so much. So it's just like if we can just kind of keep it pretty, yes, outside of like dietary restrictions or any medications that people have. Yeah, that's awesome. You've included something pretty special for our VIP toolkit. So for those who have not been able to upgrade their summit ticket yet, you're going to want to click the button right below this video because Bree has included something pretty special. Do you want to kind of share a little bit about what you have included for our audience?
Yes. So this is a guide that I love, and I'm so excited for you for it because I called it Teacher on Break. So it's really designed for the summer, but also in a way that kind of sets you up for success for when school starts again, where it is a 5-day menu, grocery list, and a recipe pack where the recipes that I included and the foods list are focused on being very easy, using a lot of simple and fresh ingredients, things that, I was being a little bit selfish when I planned it, knowing that I was going to be in kind of rural Minnesota. So I want to make sure it was ingredients that I could get while we were up here. So you're not like running to Whole Foods or like the, kind of health food store, all of that. But also minimal cooking because both, in the summer, we don't want to heat up the house, as well as just during the school year, we're on the go and like, the less cooking, the better, often. So that's kind of how I did it. Where also the recipes are designed to be pretty, what's the word? They save well. So they're great for if you want to make extras or bulk up the portions, that they're great for like grab and go. So that if you get these recipes down during the school year, you can kind of repeat them, add them into your rotation, or sorry, get them down during the summer, add them into your rotation during the school year. And they'll be great for like lunches and dinners, as well as some breakfast and some yummy snack ideas and desserts as well.
I have looked through them. And first off, the photos that you have in there are beautiful. And I've already did the whole thing because I'm going to add it into my rotation. I'm like, dang, she's got desserts, she's got snacks, she's, like you've really presented us with some, like with everything, really breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, like what anyone who wants to give me like ice cream, desserty ideas, like, and still help keep me healthy. I'm all. So
yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share, before we wrap this up, do you want to share a bit more about where we can learn from you, like your website, social media stuff? Like where can we find you if we want to learn more about you?
Yes. So I have a website that is knowledgenutritionist.com. And then most of my content where I put out like educational as well as information about my services and clients and just, kind of sharing about summer in Minnesota as well, is on Instagram. And on there, I am nutrition for teachers with periods in between the words.
Is it FOR, like nutrition,
Yep.
FOR teachers? Yep. So nutrition.for.teachers.
Teachers, yes.
Awesome. Please go give Bree a follow. She does put out some amazing things. And really, like, I found you because I was looking for really how to better, like how to eat healthier, how to just maintain work without sacrificing like my health and my body. Cause I know like there's only one of me, right? And if I'm not keeping everything else suffers. And so, yeah, I found you on Instagram and you put out some amazing, amazing things. So go give Bree a follow. Bree, thank you so much for hanging out with us, sharing your amazing wisdom. And we will see all of you in our bonus session.
Thanks, Kathy.
Bye for now.